Time is 10 a.m. In attendance are Commissioners Matari and Duncan. Commissioner Brooks is excused. Are there changes to the agenda? Okay, hearing none. Public comment? Hearing none. Our first item is the Justice Building update with David Mendez, please.
Good morning. David Mendez with Turner and Townsend Hury. So I don't have an update, a hard copy of an update, because I don't have any updates to give you other than the pricing that I had talked about on fireproofing. I was intending to have you vote on next week. I don't have the numbers from the contractor. The design team is reviewing those documents, and the issue is that some of the items appear to be required by the original contract, so we'll be coming down from those numbers. And so we need to pare back some of that $159,000 that I reported to you last meeting. So those numbers are going to be changing. I probably won't have those, or I won't have those because of people's vacation schedules until next week. So it'll be the following week that I'll present that to you. We did have some walkthroughs of the building with different departments for various reasons, mainly for furnishings. One issue did come up with the bailiffs. The evidence storage room in the first floor is currently designed as a wet system, which is not compatible with secure evidence storage. So they're looking at possible modifications to that system. That could either be, depending on which system, currently the system that we have may work the way it is. But if they need to go to a dry system for that evidence storage, that could be significant cost.
How big is the room?
I don't know that for sure. It's a large room. It's probably in the 12 to 1,600 square feet. So it's pretty good sized. It takes up one corner of that first floor.
When you refer to wet system, you're referring to fire extinguishing
fire sprinkler system, similar to what you would see if you looked up at the sprinkler heads you've got in this room. So it is a wet system. There are dry systems, but that's not what the issue is. Yeah. A dry sprinkler system is still water. So they're talking about a powder system. So if we go to that powder system, that would be significant cost. And that's what I have for you at this point.
Okay, excellent.
Any questions?
No questions. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks. Sure.
Just ask a question.
Can you come to a microphone?
Sure. Bob Norris, what evidence would normally be held at a courthouse facility?
That's a little bit beyond my knowledge, but my understanding is it's evidence that's in current cases.
Brought up for a trial.
For trials.
Generally, for chain of evidence, we like them to stay with the investigating officer, so we maintain that chain of evidence. But so there's an evidence hold for current trials at the courthouse?
That's my understanding, yes.
Okay. All right, thank you.
All right, item 2, policy for jury food, kind of keeping along that line. It's just a brief policy that outlines some guidelines for food purchases just to keep costs down and just be a little bit more fiduciary responsible with our tax dollars. So did you have any questions or suggestions?
No, I think it's a good idea. You kind of expect people to look for ways to save the county money. And we know we're going to be feeding people. We know we're going to be giving them drinks and things like that. So it only makes sense to buy in bulk those things and not pay at the highest rate possible for a bottle of water.
Yep.
So I'm all for it.
Okay, great. So I will bring it back to a business meeting and we'll just make it official because I think we should vote on it. Although I don't necessarily know that that's we have to, but
Well, let's do it because it's better to do it and not need it than not to do it and need it.
Agreed. Okay. Item 3, KC North budget update with Director Voller, and it sounds like somebody's on the phone too.
Yes, ma'am. Lieutenant Klinkfuss, I'm on the phone.
Hi. All right, go ahead.
All right. Good morning, Commissioners. Jeff Voller for the record. In your packet, you have a spreadsheet with all of the expenses that have been contributed to the Kootenai North project to date. This was as of about a week ago. And we'll just kind of talk through it. So we've categorized these into the significant project line items. So the first one being the architecture and design. We had a budgeted amount of $89.5. Currently, we've spent $93,871 towards that, with an estimated amount of $1,500 remaining towards architecture fees. So a little bit of an overage there. Part of the rationale behind that overage is there is a $2,079 initial concept design that is coded to that. That was the very first rendering drawings that LTA Architectures did for us before we went under the contract that you see that is noted there on that left-hand column. Additionally, they paid the first plan check fee to the City of Hayden to get the permits going quickly. We paid the permit fee at the end when we picked up the permit, but they paid the plan check fee that we reimbursed them for. That was about $2,000. And then there's a little bit of reimbursable costs in there as well. That's pretty typical in an architectural contract where we pay for plans and a little bit of mileage and that kind of thing for the architect expenses that are considered reimbursables. The next category you see are the permits and fees that we paid to the City of Hayden. The third large category that you see is the Stancraft contracts, including the change orders. We still have $21,000 left to pay on that contract. That is mainly for removing others. As we bring in the evidence, we're changing over, there's 2 evidence rooms. We still have to change over one of the HVAC systems because we're bringing a charcoal filter that is in the current evidence room in the basement of the sheriff's office. That still needs to be brought over, so that's a phased approach. And then we are waiting on the change order 5, that's $16,000 for the ballistic glass in the lobby area, and that little remodel in there as well. And that is waiting on glass to be delivered so that they can complete that portion of that. So that's the $21,000 remaining in expenses to pay off that one. Jimmy's roofing is complete. You'll see the expenses there. There is, I believe I mentioned it in one of the meetings, but there is a credit to that job. There was a section of roof that we did not have to remove, and so we found a little bit of cost savings there. And so there's still $28,000 remaining to pay to Jimmy's roofing. Under the inspections, those are all complete. Those were, early on in the project. So you'll see those line item in there for all the inspections that were completed on that building. The other are kind of some of the big ticket items that we had as kind of projects allocated towards that came before the BOCC for approval, being the ballistic panels to harden that lobby area. The CTC Electrical is the contractor that we use for electrical work. That's a pretty big line item in there. That's a lump sum. There's actually over 41 different invoices in there, ranging from about $200 to $7,000 that make up that $100,000 worth of work in there. There was pretty extensive electrical work that needed to be reconfigured. Some of it was just kind of a mess in terms of the switching and things. I think when you have maybe the electrical engineers doing their own electrical work in their own building, some of that stuff was probably not done quite the way that it should have been. And so they ended up fixing a lot of different things in there, plus making it work for the auto shop and the various areas that we had electrical work done in there. The fencing was a project. The Good Choice Plumbing for the women's locker room was a fairly large standalone project with a little bit of work that our maintenance department did as well to finish that. But we put the contract in for the plumbing, the asphalt, and then the garage door work that we did as well make up that category. When you go to the next page, you see the uncategorized expenses. And I know there's 2.5 pages of these uncategorized expenses, and that's a pretty long list. And I gave you that detailed, extensive list just so you could see the kind of the variation of the different amounts of projects that we did with that. Those expenses all go towards the lobby and the front offices, the locker room remodel, the patrol area, the evidence area, and the receiving area. So those are all different projects that we did to configure the needs for the Sheriff's Department So these were all purchases that were done by our maintenance department. So you see a lot of things on Amazon from lumber companies, painting companies, some drywall patchwork, things like that. So as you go through those, we basically spent about $72,000 in those miscellaneous expenses that our maintenance department spent over the course of the project to date. I would note in that we have saved significantly by having our sheriff's maintenance department do a lot of the labor regarding that. So when they bought the drywall materials, when they bought the painting materials, they were providing the labor for that. So we did save quite a bit of that rather than doing that under a contract through a general contractor to bring that into the portion of it. So there was, significant cost savings. Otherwise, this project could have cost the county more. So when you come down to the very bottom and we start to look at the totals, so we've spent, you'll see what we spent to date. On the very right-hand column, you see the outstanding payments. Those are everything kind of above that I mentioned that we still owe to the contractors for the various items. There's a few outstanding expenses that haven't been costed to the project yet. The IT software to bring the fueling station online is just around $11,000. There's a big HVAC project in the lobby that Apollo is still working on that has not been billed yet. And the ballistic glass should have shipped this week. And so we should see that here probably after the 1st of December now, so we can complete that portion of the lobby. And then the updating of the fire alarm, there was a control panel that we needed to put in for that fire alarm system, and that has not delivered yet as well, so that's why that is outstanding. So when it comes down to that, the total assigned fund balance, the $1.673 million, is what was assigned from the fund balance to this project. Additionally, we talked about the additional money saved from the detective vehicles. That was discussed a couple of weeks ago in a business meeting. That brings the project budget to 1.698, and with the total remaining budget that we have of 160,000, with the 143 left in estimated expenses, that leaves us $16,000 to complete the project. So the project is pretty close to complete. There will be some more miscellaneous as they're continuing to bring in evidence and complete that portion of the project. There'll be some painting. There'll be probably a little bit more carpentry materials, things like that. So I anticipate that $16,000 will be spent. So we're very close to the end of that project. We're very close to the end of the budget of that project. That's kind of where we stand to date. So wanted you to see that from this standpoint. And if you have any questions, I'm here. Lieutenant Klinkenfuss is here, and Ms. Falcon's here as well.
Okay, great. Questions?
So the total cost for this is $1.7 million, basically.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, is that it?
That's it.
Okay, thank you for that update. Appreciate it. All right, I'll call for public comment. Nope, hearing none. Anybody on the line? Okay, 10:13, meeting adjourned.